This is a video for my professional responsibility class. This is part 2 of our lectures on Model Rule 8.4. And in this one, we're going to be talking about 8.4G, which is a new section, new from 2016, added to Model Rule 8.4 about discrimination and harassment. In addition to this video, there's going to be a couple of short videos about a new ABA formal ethics opinion from 2020, explaining this rule, clarifying its scope and purpose. So having said that, let's look at the rule provisions. It is professional misconduct for a lawyer to engage in conduct that the lawyer knows or reasonably should know is harassment or discrimination on the basis of race, sex, religion, national origin, ethnicity, disability, age, sexual orientation, gender identity, marital status, or socioeconomic status in conduct related to the practice of law. And I put a couple of the phrases in bold here to highlight that we're going to have to talk about when we go through the comments to this rule. Now, this paragraph does not limit the ability of the lawyer to accept, decline, or withdraw from a representation in accordance with Rule 1.16. And this paragraph does not preclude the legitimate advice or advocacy consistent with these rules. Now, before we move on, I just want to kind of double back and highlight for you what is going on here. First, we have a general rule that's designed to prevent discriminatory conduct by lawyers. And we are seeing enforcement actions around the country in the last 10 years over lawyers who get in heated arguments and use racial epithets or who tell inappropriate jokes that make fun of vulnerable groups in our society, who are hostile towards immigrants, or who sexually harass female employees or female clients, and things like that. Some of these are cases where there's a conflict erupts between a lawyer and a judge, and an exchange of heated words or heated exchange, and the lawyer says some things that are very inappropriate, and this can make you subject to discipline. And so that's part of what's going on here, and it's going to cover your workplace, how you treat people and what goes on in the workplace environment in your firm, how you treat people at the courthouse and in trial, how you treat clients and other witnesses, almost anything that in any way relates to the practice of law and representation. Now, let's go back to that second slide that we had there, which is, this is all still part of G, remember. So now you can accept or decline or withdraw from representation. And we're not saying that you have to take every case, or if you're uncomfortable doing certain types of cases, that you would have to do that. So if, as an example, going back here for a moment, if you have someone who has a civil rights case about one of these things, their ethnicity or their religion or something like that, and for whatever reason, you're actually not sure that the cause that they're advocating for is something that you would be excited about or whatever, you won't be subject to discipline for simply declining to take a case or declining to represent someone, or for accepting a case. And so let's say that there's a group that's opposed to one of these other groups or something like that. You won't be subject to discipline because you are representing an individual or a group that is exclusive, or is the group itself has a discriminatory mission or functions or activities. Such groups get to have lawyers too and get to have representation. And keep in mind that the paragraph does not preclude legitimate advocacy or advice consistent with these rules. And I want to give an example. If you have a civil rights case that, let's say, goes to the US Supreme Court, and this could be about equal rights, immigrant rights, or gender rights, gender identity rights, or something like that, religious freedoms, and so forth. We're going to have lawyers on both sides of that case, and there's going to be a winner and a loser. And what we don't want is to have a lawyer feel like if they're advocating for the side that's on the losing side of history or of our legal history on this, that they could be subject to discipline. And so if you think about a case, and this is getting to be an older case now, of Lawrence v. Texas, where the Supreme Court said we can't have sodomy statutes, we can't criminalize homosexuality. Well, there was a lawyer who had to represent Texas in that case, and to argue for, we don't want to change the rules and we shouldn't extend rights protections to this group. And advocacy, being the lawyer for one of the sides, does not subject you to discipline under this rule. And the rule is explicit about that. Okay, let's look at the comments. And for 8.4, remember, it's a long rule. It has sections A through G, and then the comments are for all of it. But most of the comments starting in comment 3 are really about section G. And so we're going to go through some of the comments that I think would be useful for you to know as a student. Discrimination and harassment by lawyers in violation of paragraph G undermine confidence in the legal profession and the legal system. And such discrimination includes harmful verbal or physical conduct that manifests bias or prejudice towards others. Harassment. So what's harassment under this rule? It includes sexual harassment and derogatory or demeaning verbal or physical conduct. Sexual harassment includes unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other unwelcome verbal or physical conduct of asexual nature. And keep in mind, we see disciplinary actions every year in different places around the country of lawyers who were sexually harassing their subordinates, their staff, their clients, courthouse employees, and so forth, harassing them, insisting that they reciprocate their romantic overtures, or constantly making suggestive jokes to them and things like that. And those things are forbidden under this rule. Now, the substantive law of anti-discrimination and anti-harassment statutes and case law may guide application of paragraph G. And this is a very important point for my students that I want you to note. We have bodies of law about employment discrimination, and we also have bodies of law about civil rights and discrimination in general about things. And this rule is independent of those, but those may inform the enforcement of this rule. And so just like when we talk about a rule violation doesn't automatically make you liable for malpractice, legal malpractice, nor does a legal malpractice verdict automatically mean that you will be subject to discipline with the bar, but each one is relevant for the other. And so when the state bar is trying to decide whether your conduct should constitute harassment or is serious enough to be that you should be subject to a punishment or discipline, like a suspension of your license, they can draw from the insights of contemporary employment discrimination law or sexual harassment law and so forth, where the courts have had to wrestle with a lot of these same issues. Now, keep in mind, though, that your tribunal, the disciplinary authority in your state, is not necessarily bound to apply the exact same standard in a disciplinary action, but it's likely that that will influence their decision as they struggle to define some of the terms or set benchmarks or standards for what conduct is over the line and should carry some sort of sanction or punishment. Okay, let's go back to the comments. Now, what does conduct related to the practice of law include? This is comment 4 to 8.4. This certainly includes representing clients, interacting with witnesses, with your coworkers, with court personnel, lawyers, and others while engaged in the practice of law, operating or managing a law firm or law practice. And so some of the management issues dealing with a landlord hiring a cleaning crew to come in and clean the office at night, all of these things where you're dealing with vendors and contractors and so forth as part of kind of the business operations, and also participating in bar association, business or social activities in connection with the practice of law. So if you go to a bar association event or a reception or networking event, and there you engage in the type of conduct, mistreatment of other people that is described in this rule, you could still be subject to discipline, even though it has nothing to do with representing a client. You're at a networking event with your local bar association that could apply to that. Comment 4 continues, lawyers may engage in conduct undertaken to promote diversity and inclusion without violating this rule by, for example, implementing initiatives aimed at recruiting, hiring, and retaining and advancing diverse employees, or sponsoring diverse law student organizations. In other words, affirmative action in hiring is permissible and does not violate this rule. And similarly, helping organize law student organizations for minority students, students of color, students of other various faiths or religious backgrounds or ethnicities and so forth. All of that is permissible and not subject to discipline under this rule. Of course, you must be aware, if you're a law student, that when people debate about affirmative action, those who oppose it will say, well, this is basically just reverse discrimination, right? So you're now just by favoring a particular group in hiring or interviewing or promotions and things like that, you are shortchanging the people that aren't in that group or the majority. And so, for example, if you have affirmative action for hiring women, you're giving preference to hiring women, that is a discrimination against the men who are applying. And the ABA has said, basically, that doesn't apply to this rule. And so you can go ahead and practice affirmative action in your hiring or in implementing initiatives at your firm for partner track and things like that. Also, comment 5, a trial judge's finding that peremptory challenges were exercised on a discriminatory basis does not alone establish a violation of paragraph G. And so if you haven't had criminal procedure yet, what are we talking about here? We're talking about what's called a Batson challenge and sort of a little mini Batson hearing. So during jury selection, if one of the lawyers is using his or her peremptory strikes to remove women or people of color from the jury, which sadly in our legal history used to be very common, the other attorney or the judge can object, right? And say, wait, it looks like you're using all your peremptory strikes just to remove jurors of a certain race or female jurors from the pool, and you can't do that. And at that point, there's typically a sidebar or something like that, where the attorney who's wanting to use their peremptory strike will have to articulate a non-discriminatory reason for the strike. And if you are familiar with the Batson line of cases, this line of cases, almost anything will work, right? The person looked at me funny or something is a non-discriminatory reason to exercise a peremptory strike. But nevertheless, the judges have a lot of discretion when it comes to these things about whether they will allow you to use a strike or not. And the fact that a judge doesn't buy it and rules against you is not going to trigger a rule violation or a disciplinary action against you, so you don't have to worry about it when you're using your peremptory strikes. Why? Because the judge has a lot of discretion, and these are very case-specific issues, and there's is some uncertainty in this area. And so this is sort of a safe harbor provision. This won't apply to Batson hearings. 5 continues, a lawyer does not violate paragraph G by limiting the scope or subject matter of the lawyer's practice, or by limiting the lawyer's practice to members of underserved populations in accordance with these rules and other law. And so, for example, if you have someone who comes to you and they say, I have a civil rights case, I was a victim of discrimination, and you say, well, the problem is I only do residential real estate closings. That's my whole practice is I do home sales, the law of home sales. You're not obligated to take every civil rights case or discrimination case that walks in your door if that's not really your area of practice, right? And similarly, if you really don't do immigration law and you don't really know that much about it, and you have someone come and they have an immigration issue, it's not a violation of this rule for you to say, I don't do immigration cases. Just like it's fine for you to say, I don't do litigation, or I don't do commercial transactions or something like that. I don't draft wills. You are allowed to limit either the scope of your representation or of your practice in general to, I like doing these kind of cases. I specialize in this kind of cases, and I just don't take other types of cases, and that's fine, and you won't be subject to discipline for that. Similarly, if you are a legal aid lawyer, or you have a practice that's the opposite, where you only want to take cases that serve vulnerable people in our society. So you really like representing, doing advocacy for immigrants or victims of discrimination and harassment and things like that, and you turn away people who don't have that type of claim, that's permissible still under this rule. Okay, and that concludes our little lecture on Model Rule 8.4G.